I'm just going to check that I'm on live because I'm still getting the dealio with Zoom, and I'm totally okay with that awkward sort of kickoff. One moment. Bear with me. All right, cool. I'm going to turn it on as well so I can see comments if anybody joins. Hello, welcome to Teacher Thursday. Actually, I will just check the audio. Yeah. Cool. I have a microphone because without it, it's quite echoey and it sounds annoying. And the microphone negates that. So, hello and welcome to Teacher Thursday. We are going to be diving in a little more into imagination and intuition, which is what I taught last Thursday in the webinar that I did, and it's part of the 10-week program that I am kicking off next year. It is a really interesting lesson, and it's been one that I have been really enjoying deepening into. And it's been one that I've really enjoyed sharing. And inside of the 10-week program, it is actually the end lesson that we learn. There's a bit of a progression that leads us to this space, and that's really where the final piece of this program, where we are beginning to open to our intuition and our imagination being hand in hand, being one and the same, and being the way that we bridge potentials from the fifth dimension, from our soul, where all things exist at once. And it's with our imagination, it's with our intuition that we are beginning to slow down these pure waveforms, this pure energy, this pure consciousness into something that we can experience inside of the material plane. So one of the really the key points of what I'm teaching inside of this lesson is this middle layer here, which is the fourth dimension, or the subtle anatomy, or our subconscious. Now, that is where all of our programs exist. That is where we are, what we are experiencing inside of our physical reality, inside of the world, or the experience that we are having inside of this world. That is all being driven by what we are storing inside of our subconscious. So for me, when I am banging on all of the time about meeting and clearing subconscious fear, it is so that we can have a different outcome that to what our fear-driven programs would have us, or will have us will have show up in our reality. So I want to share with you for me, what that actually meant when I was, it was during a stage in my life where I had created what I thought was a life that I wanted. I had created a life where I was at home running a business with my partner. I was at home with my children, and that's exactly the idea of a life that I thought I wanted. And when I got there, when I had created that, I realized that it actually wasn't what I thought it would be. In fact, I thought that, having this idea um, of a life would mean that, patterns in my life that I was sick of and fed up with, and thought, had likened them to being a part of a life that I was living previously. I thought that they wouldn't exist anymore. But the reality was, when I had created the life that I thought I wanted, I was still very much seeing patterns of behavior that were still having you go round in circles, feeling like I was constantly on this roller coaster. I was still experiencing extreme states of distress, extreme states of emotions, and I was still unhappy. I was still overwhelmed and stressed out with my life. Only I had more stress. And so it was at this time in my life when I was like, man, what is going on? How is it that I have done all of these things? I've been in and out of personal development programs. I'd read every single book that I could think of and under the personal development sort of banner. And I was still experiencing these things that I was no longer wanting to be experiencing. And that was then when I was exploring the occult. I was exploring witchcraft. I was exploring different modalities of energy manipulation, and I was exploring crystals and all of these different ways to try and better understand reality. And that was how I ended up stumbling upon this amazing woman. She had put out a post inviting somebody to be a case study for a method session. And I think there was something in her post saying that she is doing something to do with subconscious fear. And at that time, I had no idea. I'd never heard of anything like that before, but I did feel this real strong pull to say yes. And so I put my hand up. I put my name down to receive, and then completely forgot about it. It was so just like in passing that, it was just like, sure, I'll take that for free. That sounds awesome. And completely forgot about it, to the point that I had, hi, Michelle, how you going, beautiful? I had completely forgotten about the appointment. I got a message from this woman saying, hey, you still coming? And I was like, oh, crap, that's that thing. Sure, yep, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Anyway, so she flashes up on the screen. I had no idea who she was or what it was that we were going to be doing together. And she tells me, I don't need to know what has brought you to this session. I am here to guide you to meet and clear subconscious fear. And then she guides me to close down my eyes. And she says to me, your dominant negative self-belief is, I am afraid of being vulnerable. The shadow archetype associated with this fear is the victim. I see a wolf, she said. And at first I thought it was just her pups standing behind her, but now I can see it is her entire pack. And she stands in front of them with the fur on the back of her neck standing up, her teeth bared as she growls and snarls at the unknown before her. And what that says to me is that every single time you or somebody you know is feeling vulnerable, you are there ready to attack, to pounce, and to defend. And as this woman was describing how the subconscious fear and the shadow archetype were playing out in my life, tears were streaming down my face, and everything changed coming out of that session. I had no idea that it was the subconscious fear that was dictating my experience. I had no idea that that is what I needed to know. And that set me on a pathway of exploration. I was curious. I wanted to know more. That was so impactful in my life. Ask any of my family, they will tell you that they saw big changes in me right from there. It really snowballed into an epic transformation. 12 months after having this session with meeting and clearing my subconscious fear, I was in Bali learning how to provide this same medicine. That in and of itself was a huge deal for me. I, was maybe even 3 months prior to leaving the country all on my own. I was terrified to walk the streets of Brisbane in case, something terrible happened. There was heaps of attacks and stuff happening around that time, that I was really scared that I was in danger. For me to fly out of the country on my own was huge. And even in doing that, even in going to Bali, it was like I was a new person. I felt like the maiden archetype. If you haven't been on my channel much before, I have spoken a lot about archetypes. I was dedicated 13 whole weeks to sharing the magic of archetypes, which do belong inside of the imagination and intuition lesson that I taught last week. But I roamed Bali like I was the most freest, safest person in the world. And even recalling that now is just like incredible to acknowledge how much transformation came by my clearing the fear inside of this middle layer, inside of my subconscious. And there's a lot of, we have a lot of conditioning around not doing that. And we have a lot of conditioning around squashing our imagination. Right from our childhood, we are told to put it down. We're told that what we are experiencing with our imagination is not real. Something that I taught inside of the webinar last week was that even when it comes down to meal times, even when it comes down to eating food, we have been taught by society, and just through generations of teaching, that we know better than our children. This is something that has been huge for me to really begin to action since I'm teaching, that no, we need to change our perspective on how we parent our children. We need to start to open to that perhaps maybe they know more than us. And it's been a real test and challenge for me to actually trust what I'm teaching is applies for my children and as well. Which means that I have had to concentrate a lot of the fears that I have towards allowing myself to fully trust my children, allowing myself to trust that they are absolutely divinely intuitive beings like I am. And a lot of our conditioning that we are having to meet with, like the conditions that we are storing inside of our subtle anatomy, they're not a small feat, but they are something that when we face them, when we are able to direct and focus our intention and our attention upon them, that is how we then shift our perspective. And that is our one main task when we are here in Earth School, is to be able to expand our perspective on the reality that we are perceiving, on our experience. It is through our perspective that our beliefs are formed, that our beliefs are held. And when we begin to see those perspectives and begin to zoom out of them, then we are able to shift them. And so when we are talking about zooming out, when we are talking about archetypes, when we are talking about zooming out on our perspective, what we are being invited to do is to look at our experiences through symbolic sight. We are being invited to, instead of having this narrow tunnel vision perspective, which is what we tend to hold when we are living from our cranial mind, when our analytical mind wants to pick everything apart so that we can better understand it. And that is very much the mainstream sciences and how they've been taught to us, is that the way that we can understand life, the way that we can understand reality, is to fully separate all of its parts so that we can then have a look at an isolated part to better understand it. In actual fact, what modern sciences are teaching us, what quantum sciences are teaching us, is that it's the whole item, it's the whole reality that we must be able to observe from that, it's within its wholeness, to then be able to better understand it. And we do that through symbolic sight. We do that by looking at things through archetypal lenses. Now, an archetype is a pattern of energy that we can observe over time. Take, for example, the maiden. The maiden is that the maiden archetype, the lens that she offers us is to be able to look through her eyes, through the lens of a child, through the lens of a young girl who is unadulterated in the way that she sees the world. And she sees that with pure innocence, with pure joy, with pure delight and curiosity and wonder. And so we can take these principles, we can take these patterns of that energy and observe our experiences through that lens, to be able to have a broader perspective, a symbolic perspective. We can do this by looking at, for example, things inside of our collective experience that we can all observe. So when we are seeing, have a look, what it is that is being revealed to you when you scroll mindlessly on your Facebook or social media. what is the fear program that is being fed to you inside of that? When you begin to say, for example, if it's being fed to you, um, um, there's some horrible things happening to children in the world, and to be able to zoom out on that, to be able to zoom out on that with an archetypal lens is a huge task, and it's not something that you can do unless you're willing to meet and clear your subconscious fear. It is a huge ask to zoom out and see these patterns that are occurring inside of our experience through, for example, the maiden's lens, through the lens of innocence. It is huge, and it takes a fierce fearlessness to be able to open to that, to become impartial, to detach from the fear, to detach from the conditioning, to then see that through another lens, and a zoomed out symbolic lens. That takes time, that takes practice, that takes support, scaffolding, training, and teaching, which is what I am absolutely here to do. I'm here to raise the roof off of mainstream education so that this kind of concept, this kind of way that we perceive our life is the mainstream, is the dominant program, so that we know when we are seeing some horrific things inside of our field, we know what to do with it. We know that we have the power within ourselves to be able to detach from that, to be able to see it impartially, and be able to recognize that what's being shown, or what you're experiencing, what you're receiving, is an invitation to meet that fear for yourself and for the entire planet, because there is only one of us in the room, but that is inside of another lesson inside of this program. What I wanted to, hi mama, what I wanted to expand on with that as well, one of the big things for me that's been showing up in my field, and what I teach inside of this lesson, is that the number one way, especially in this highly digital age, the number one way that we are being programmed is through our digital media. It is through our social media. It's through the news media. It's through every type of media, specifically in screen. Now, when I'm talking about symbolic side as well, this is the language of our imagination. This is the language of our subconscious, which is receiving through symbols, which is receiving through images. Our subconscious and our imagination doesn't speak English or any man-made language. It speaks with images. So when that is constantly being put into ourselves, into our system, as if we are a computer, and the information or the symbols that are being flashed up on all of the screens that we are surrounded by in this heavily, densely digital age, those are the programs that we are receiving. So that's the challenge for us moving forward, especially inside of this digital age, is to become aware, to become, again, running from that default program, that autonomous program, that we can see everything through symbolic sight. So I went to watch a movie yesterday, and it's called Savage, and it's about it's a New Zealand film, and it follows the life of a man who experiences something that is quite common in New Zealand, which is a life of inside of a gang. And what was interesting, what I was observing um, through these images, through this programming, was a huge archetypal pattern of gang life, and again, being very conscious of what I was receiving here was a pattern of what we will all experience at some point in our life. It's part of our biological evolution, is this sense of belonging that we are all seeking. We are all seeking this sense of belonging, whether it be from our family. If family isn't an option for a person, they will then seek it externally from somewhere else. And in this particular movie, in his case, it was through other boys that he had grown up with inside of a boys home or something. He'd gotten arrested when he was a young boy, and he basically was never sent home again. His family completely abandoned him. And what was really, really powerful for me observing that, there was quite a high emotional response for me watching this. And there was this huge amount of sadness that I felt for this person, for this character. And beyond that, there was this huge amount of sadness that I felt for every single young man who ends up inside of this pattern where, because of a really rocky and rough upbringing, the belonging that they attained was inside of a gang. What was um, what was also really interesting inside of that kind of pattern and that dynamic was the gang. The pattern of inside of this gang is that there is this real rage and anger towards society, who have completely, they've been pushed to the side, they've been completely squashed. Inside of the movie, how it was portrayed was that these young men were completely invisible to society. They were there begging, they were homeless, and they were asking for money, and they saw how they saw another a group of gang members who walked through this public setting, and people saw them and were afraid of them. Instantly, people were responding to them, and they recognized that these men had power. And they took that. That's where they then realized that they had to take on this persona. They had to take on the way that they presented themselves and projected themselves in order for them to be able to be seen and to be recognized and to be noticed and to have a sense of power. It was really fascinating for me to really pick up on what was being filtered into that for me symbolically, because I do have this angst and this fire in my belly towards mainstream societal conformity, on how our society has been built upon this very hierarchical way of existing. There's so much separation within demographics and the many ways that this plays out, even inside of schools, where there is you have to, if you don't fit into this box, then you're not going to make it, basically. And this is something that is very alive in me right now. So then to go and see that being mirrored back to me through this archetype of being inside of a gang was really fascinating. But that's the power that we have when we are able to recognize that everything that we are observing, everything that we are receiving as information into our very, very intelligent computer, is an opportunity for us to see beyond what is literal, to see beyond what is smack bang in the front of us, and to see a much broader perspective of what we are seeing ultimately. And this is a huge component and point inside of this lesson, is what we are being guided to do when we begin to open to our very, very limitless and infinite imagination and intuition, is to trust ourselves, trust what we are receiving, but also to trust that everything, every single symbol is serving our awakening when we begin to understand and integrate that what is being fed to us is a much larger picture than what we are able to see while still inside of that analytical brain, that analytical mind. There is so much. Hello, Katie. Thank you for joining me. There are so many people. There are 7 billion people on this planet at this time. And for every single one person who awakens to the power that they have within them to receive information and to actually do something with it is incredible. Like, that is where real change comes. That is when we can meet with the the mainstream the mainstream conditions and boxes and begin to pick them apart and bring everybody back into a unified field. And it takes one person at a time to awaken to that truth, and one person at a time to be able to start actioning and embodying that as their truth. For every one person that does that, the ripple on effect of that is incredible. So what I wanted to do this evening to support this very, very rich lesson, because it's simply not enough for us to hear information, we must apply it. I want to take you through a practice, and it is part of intuitive intelligence tapping, and it is a process that is called Remembering Soul, which is absolutely a beautiful embodiment of what we are doing when we remember that we are infinitely imaginative and intuitive. So if you aren't familiar with tapping, what we are doing, tapping or EFT, is grounded by it's a psychology. Oh, I can't remember at the moment. Emotional psychology, I think, is the science. Is that it's a newly being mainstream sciences are finally catching up on it. What it's based on are Chinese medicine acupuncture points. And what we are doing when we are using tapping is we are focusing on meridian points. For this practice, we will just be focusing on the side of hand point. There are a number of other points that I use with my clients inside of a full session, but for the ease of this practice, we will just go with the side of hand. What we are doing is we are moving energy throughout our meridian centers to restore our subtle anatomy to balance. And so what I will do throughout this process for this practice is I will guide you to repeat after me. And this is a remarkable practice. We are so much more than our physical, mental, emotional bodies. We know that a small portion of our great soul light is temporarily inhabiting our human body, much like these images that you can see behind me. It is in that inner circle, our ego, our physical body, our dominant five senses, everything that we are experiencing inside of this physical world is an embodiment of that outer layer of our soul. Eternally, we are soul in all of its wisdom and grace. And this is our divine nature, the truth of us. We are soul. In remembering soul, we use tapping with visualization, with our imagination. I'm mirrored. That's why I keep getting confused. Which way I'm going? That way, both ways. There's no separation. They are one and the same. And it is in the conscious reconnection with our soul wisdom and love that we can free ourselves and support ourselves to become the best version of self. We can learn to wash all of our ideas and thoughts, our intentions and our desires, our hopes, our dreams and wishes through the wisdom and love of the soul. We can deliberately connect into the wisdom of the sage. And it is in the bosom of the soul that we find the love and support we may have been looking for all of our lives. It is here that we will know that we are loved, and loving. In this visualization, aligned with tapping, we may expand our consciousness to allow a greater flow of light to transport us to a feeling of deep connection, or rather of reconnecting, remembering to all that we can be. Nothing here is new. We are simply remembering self in all its powerful beauty and truth. So let's begin the visualization now, remembering that your imagination is the bridge from the soul into this physical world. So giving yourself over to the magnificent power of your imagination. We will be using this process and referencing our chakras, specifically the soul chakra. And if you are not familiar with that, our soul chakra is roughly about 30 centimeters above our crown. So closing down your eyes now. and place 2 fingers on your heart chakra in the middle of your chest. And take 3 conscious breaths. And as you do, imagine there is a light in your heart center and breathe into it. As you breathe into this space, observe as this beautiful energy begins to expand to include all of you. You are immersed in a cloud of brilliant white light. Visualize, sense, imagine, or feel a pathway of light moving up from your crown chakra, going higher and higher. The energy flows up, up, up into your soul star chakra, roughly 30 centimeters above your crown. Again, remembering how powerful your imagination is. A truly powerful gift that you have to create a new reality. You may sense this energy center becoming more alive and vibrant. You find it easy to feel this powerful energy center. Your soul star chakra begins to radiate as the light flows, moving up and out, expanding into finer and finer frequencies. Begin to tap on the side of your hand and repeat after me. Even though I may have forgotten that I am soul, I accept myself with love. Even though I may not always feel my soul love, I accept myself with compassion. Even though I can't always hear my soul wisdom, I honor myself for all that I have achieved. This disconnection from my soul awareness. I don't always sense my soul wisdom. I feel separated from my soul love. This disconnection from my soul awareness. I don't always sense my soul wisdom. I feel separated from my soul love. This disconnection from my soul awareness. I don't always sense my soul wisdom. I feel separated from my soul love. I choose to know a deep communion with my soul. I choose to experience my soul wisdom. I choose to luxuriate in the love of my soul. I choose to know myself as the deep, luscious love of my soul essence. I choose to be the love and the beauty of my soul. I choose to know my soul and I are eternally one. with your eyes closed and while breathing with awareness, simply luxuriate in the immersion within your soul's mystical, magical beauty. Let her unfold you in your own divine perfection, healing, balancing, nurturing, and loving. You just know that everything you have been searching for is here. And know that you can communicate with your soul and that you may feel, sense, imagine, or hear what your soul would have you know. Surrender into a deep communion with your gracious soul and know there is deep healing occurring at every amazing level of you. I'm going to move into silence for just a moment. Allow yourself to receive easily and effortlessly whatever is most needed in this moment. Gently lowering your hand down to your lap and give yourself over to this gift of stillness and silence. You may choose to give a clear intention to remember your soul connection every day until it is ever present in your awareness of self. Taking a deep breath now, filling your belly as much as possible, and let it all go out through the mouth with a big audible sigh. Bring some movement back into your fingers and toes. Stretch anywhere your body is asking, and when you are ready, blink open your eyes. I am imagining a world where we all remember that we are soul every damn day, and in doing so can send out massive ripples in the field of belonging, of wholeness, especially to those who are perhaps needing that the most right now. For me, that is the deepest, most sacred of service that we could ever do. Thank you for those of you who have joined me live for Teacher Thursday, and for those of you who will catch the replay. The time that we really exist on does not exist. Time is but an illusion. And it is, it's been an amazing opportunity for me to be able to process what has been coming into my field recently. Thank you for allowing me this space to do something with it here and with you all. So much love to you all. I will see you again soon. Mwah.